Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to a view replay courtesy of the excellently named We'll Fight for Pizza in the M56 Scorpion, as you can see. And normally, if you think of someone having a really good game in this, it's going to be on a wide open map with plenty of bush cover, with other people hopefully spotting for you. And if not, well, I don't think it's got a terrible view range itself. I can't remember what it is offhand, but as you can see, Fight for Pizza is clearly set up for sitting behind bushes and using a camo net and using binoculars. But this is Stalingrad, so all of that is completely out of the window. And basically, he's just going to have to be very sneaky and just try and get in some damage where he can, because this is a bottom tier game. He has no armor, he has not a lot of health to trade, so yeah, he can't just sit out in the open and trust that people will miss him. And he actually did get a little bit lucky there, because he's just discovered where the enemy E50 is, and they were looking right at him. So he's come to this side, I think, because a fair few of his allies have come to this side, including their own E50, so he's not going to be on his own, and it might be a bit easier to fall back from this position than it would on the other flank. He's also managed to get a nice early pen into that E50, and I think he does mostly use AP in this. I'm not sure he touches any of his heat shells, which would be more than justified under the circumstances, because, you know, he's facing tier 9 tanks potentially. But, you know, if he can aim well, if he knows weak spots, then the 219 average pen of the AP shells should be sufficient for the most part. So another hit into the E50, who gave him a nice shot to the side armor there. I'm not, like, I guess the E50 was just over-angling that first time, but I'm not entirely sure how he managed to get that first penetration even so, because the E50's side armor is not half bad. But, I mean, they must just have been over-angling. So the 1390 would have been a bit of a concern if it was coming this way, but instead they're going for that Comet. There's actually another Comet there, the guy that rear-ended him at the start, and he's managed to get himself stuck. I actually cut off the very start of this match, but yeah, that guy was basically complaining about the Comet, clearly not enjoying playing through the Comet, and they're then going to pretty much not go on to contribute to this match at all, because they got themselves stuck in a house, which I thought was rather funny. So the 1390's out of the way. I mean, you know, nice and squashy, yes, but when you're in something with basically no armor, any autoloader is a big threat. So he's now able to swing his attention round to the other side, where the enemy tanks are pressing up a bit, but his own team is holding. So although there's a reasonably equal spread of their own team, which in theory means if there was an unequal spread of the enemy team, they could just try and punch through, the enemy team must be reasonably equally spread out as well, so he's able to, from this position, help out both flanks potentially. So it was a hit into the T-34-3, who's been finished off by the Foch. We know there's a T-29 there as well, and hello, Jagdtiger 8.8. Well, that's not good. The ISU is also obviously a big threat. In fact, the ISU could just wipe him out with a single shell potentially, but the Jagdtiger is also a threat just because of that very high rate of fire, and if they know to switch to HE shells, it's not going to take a lot of shots to kill him. So both of these tanks are not to be trifled with, and you can see that We'll Fight for Pizza clearly appreciates this. He's not just hanging around in front of this tank, even though this tier 8 tank destroyer has the same amount of alpha that he does. So the Jagdtiger is actually side-scraping a bit, which it can do, because, you know, it's Tiger 2 hull. And, oh, well, he's taking a hit, and he backs off. He just can't afford to sit and trade in front of this guy, but he is now getting some help from the IS-3. So the Jagdtiger has been forced to back off. The ISU also doesn't appear to be interested in pressing, and I'm sure he's keeping an eye on what's going on the 890 line as well, because there's still a fair bit of action going on there, but his team is holding. They're being pushed, but they are holding, so he can at the moment just confine his attention to what's in front of him. He doesn't have to worry about the imminent collapse of his teammates. So we can see in the minimap that ISU's moving up, and he's just taken notice of that, but that's fine. The IS-3 finishes him off, so he can maybe try and shoot this Jagdtiger through all these gaps in this ruined building. But of course the Jagdtiger is more than aware of this, and he can shoot right back potentially, so Will Fight for Pizza is having to be quite cautious here. He can't just maybe pop out and do the damage he wants. But crucially, the Jagdtiger gets distracted. That gives Will Fight for Pizza the perfect opportunity to get in a shot. If he can get another one, it'll finish him, but he can't quite get the angle. And instead it just throws the camera off, rather. So if he wants this shot, he's going to have to go around. So they're starting to get some traction. The other flank has actually been able to push forwards, which is excellent. This flank, well, it took a heavy battering, but they've basically held. And, oh, that's an unfortunate miss, because that would have killed the Jagdtiger. But if we can finish him, there we go. He was able to get his front round, but he was still able to pen the front with the AP shell, so that was fine. So yeah, they are, you know, they've taken a heavy battering, this team, but they've managed to get the upper hand just about. But they still have to be a bit careful. They can't be completely overconfident, because for all their superiority in numbers, well, that comet is still very firmly stuck. So they're basically out of this fight entirely. So he's now looking for the Torty, who is a huge threat with that 400 average gun and pretty decent armour, but not at the rear so much. So while they're engaging this Tiger P frontally, and the Tiger P, I have to say, does okay in this. The Tiger P is not one of those tanks that has done well over time. It never really had the same buffs that the Tiger's gotten over time, so it's not a great tier 7 heavy. It's okay at best, but yeah, it's far from great. But considering what they were facing off against there, they actually managed to hold their nerve rather well. So the Torty's down, and now he goes for the IKV-90 and gets incredibly lucky, because that was an HE shell that he took in his gun, I think. He had really like 19 HE damage, and the fact that he only took 19 HE damage means that when the artillery shot him and only did 282, he survived, and now he's got 1 hit point. But he's still alive, and actually hasn't lost any crew. So that's something. So he's got his last HE shell. I mean, he was using some of the IKV to try and kill it a bit quicker, and now he can maybe get a good hit into the GW Panther, who has fired and missed, so he can just kill this guy at his leisure. But there's still a VK 1000, yeah, well, I suppose you would say the 1001p, or 100.01p if you were going to be laborious about it. But yeah, this guy, you know, didn't push up. Obviously, anything could kill him at this point. Even nudging an ally could kill him at this point. So he has to be ultra cautious, and it's kind of not welcome that the guys come to play with him. But it's not that bad. He can just basically keep this guy spotted, because he can beat this this heavy tank's reload easily. He's got the terrain going in his advantage, and the Foch is coming up to help as well. Interestingly, the Tiger P just chose to try and cap. I'm not sure if they had a specific thing going on, but as it is, they just killed that last heavy tank as the cap ticker went up to 100. So that might have been one of those frustrating endings where there's still hit points left on the table, there's still an enemy tank left alive, and it would have been possible to take them down. But as it was, that Foch turning up meant they could kill him, and so they were able to completely wipe the enemy team. And as you can see, Will Fight for Pizza did very well, nearly 3,600 damage with a 90mm gun, and considerably at the head of the team. You know, the Foch did pretty well as well, with over 3,000 damage done, but they only had about 900 XP. So I would say that was a pretty creditable performance, and in a slower tank destroyer this might have been tricky, but just the nature of this thing, yeah, he actually made it work really well. He was able to find a good initial position, and because his team didn't crumble on either side, because the enemy team was fairly spread out as well, he was able to help out both sides for a while. He was able to use that mobility to sneak up behind people and finish off the Jagdtiger. He was able to finish off the Torty. So you know, there was a bit of surprise butt sex and not so surprise butt sex, but he also had some you know, face-to-face moments as well, which could have gone either way. And of course, it is sheer luck that the IKV-90 didn't derp him for more damage and that the artillery didn't kill him. leaving him on only 1 hit point, but they basically won at that point anyway. Even if he had died to the artillery, he still would have had a really good game. It's just one of those rounds where RNG goes, okay, you can have that 1 hit point, you can stay alive just, and get a bit more damage out of it. So that was rather nice. So hopefully you enjoyed this replay, and if you did, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.